When I got married, I lived at the very end of Parker Road in Oratia. And then I bought a little place up on West Coast Road. However, it was very steep, and my son Simon loved playing soccer. So I thought, no, I can't live up here, even though I've got a beautiful view up there. I need to move down into Glen Eden and have a place where I've got a good space for him to run around and kick a ball. So this place was a whole acre. Half an acre at the back was in paddocks, and we had 3 sheep and some chickens, and the people next door had cows. And I had, this sort of half an acre for him to run around and kick a ball. My husband and I had separated. He'd gone back to Turkey for 16 months. He was Turkish. And so I was on my own with the children here. And then he rang and said he'd like to come back, but he didn't have a job. So we sold my car and we bought a van, and we started a vegetable delivery business. And from that, I thought, well, perhaps we could include the hummus that I was already making at that stage and get it around and about and out. Because I was making it because the children liked it initially. So then a friend of mine came along and said to me, well, East West, that's the health food shop in Glen Eden, East West is always running out of hummus. The supplier doesn't supply regularly. Why don't you go down and see if you can sell to them? So I thought, I don't know. And I went down and talked to them, and they said, yes, we'd like to try it. So I went back down. I came home, made some. I took it in, and Rick, the owner, said, well, yes, but what are you going to call it? And I said, well, it's hummus. And he said, yes, but there's lots of hummus. You've got to give it a name. Call it Lisa's Hummus. So I said, okay. So I came back home and I got some sticky labels that we had here, and I wrote Lisa's Hummus in blue felt tip pen and stuck them on the lids. So that's why, and I'll show you here, if I can reach it. There we go. That is why, subsequently, it was written in blue, because my blue vivid was the colour. In the evening I'd stand there in the kitchen with my little kitchen whiz making hummus, and then it would overheat and I'd have to wait for 15 minutes to make another lot because it would just cut out because it would get so hot. When I realised it was selling so well at East West, I decided to take the product to a supermarket, and I took it to Mount Albert Pack and Save, and they told me from there that I absolutely couldn't make it at home. You see, when you're making food, there's the danger that the cat's been up on the bench or, general hygiene rules. So my first option was to go with the garage, which was a nice, big, clean garage. But because Waitakere City didn't allow 2 kitchens on one property without being officially subdividing, and I had absolutely no money whatsoever, I couldn't do that. So I landed up sharing a commercial kitchen in Mount Albert, actually, with a friend. Pack and Save and New World are owned by Foodstuffs, which are a New Zealand chain, individually owned. So you could go to the individual supermarkets. I didn't have to take on the whole chain, because there was no way that I could do that. Yes. There's nowhere small business now even could go to Progressive that has, Countdown Woolworths and say, could they put their products in? Not unless they were quite a big business, because then you have to provide everybody. Whereas going through Pack and Save and New World one at a time, as my capacity to produce more increased, then I could take on another store. What I did was, very wickedly, because I don't think we were allowed to do this, we used to cook the chickpeas at home, turn them on, soak them overnight here, and turn them on first thing in the morning, and they'd cook for a couple of hours, and drain them off, put them in the back of the car. By that stage I had a car as well as our van that we had. Put them in the back of the car and drive them into Mount Albert to the commercial kitchen and process them there, so that technically that would totally not be allowed under food safety standards at all these days, but I wasn't being checked on in those days, so it was okay, and nobody ever got sick, so that was great. I'd been on the benefit, we'd been very poor, and then the vegetable business wasn't making very much money at all. So even with the hummus, we lived off $19,000 a year for the first 2 years. I mean, it's not much with 3 kids. I mean, we ate the vegetables and we ate the hummus, so we were healthy, but, we were really broke. And I wanted the children to be able to have piano lessons and play soccer and all of those things. I mean, even when I was on the benefit down at Pars Park, it was my turn to do the oranges in the team, and I just didn't have any money. So I took along some plastic cups and some orange juice. And the coach really shouted at me and said, "This is totally inappropriate." So I just took my son and left, and he didn't play soccer the rest of the year because I couldn't deal with it. And that's the sort of prejudice you get from people who don't understand what it's like to have no money. Well, just be really determined to make it succeed. Visualise a successful business. I mean, the more you visualise it, the more it's going to happen. Think of problems as challenges. Just rephrase the word to challenge. And don't take no for an answer. I mean, I was rejected from lots of supermarkets. People have come to me and asked me for advice, and they say, "Well, what did you do? The supermarkets have said no to us." I said, "How many times have you been?" And they said, "Well, just once." And I said, "Well, go back again." I'm not taking no for an answer. And I thought of every single way I could possibly get in there. I'd put on a funny voice and ring up the supermarket and ask if they stocked Lisa's hummus. And if they said no, they didn't, I'd ask if they'd get it in for me. One of the reasons I think we were so successful was that it was a real health food. I mean, it had no preservatives. And so many products are full of preservatives. So I advertised no preservatives and also GM free. People were just beginning to learn about genetic engineering in those days. So I think people thought, oh, changing the DNA of plants, that's not good. So they liked the idea of something that, guaranteed it didn't have anything in it. When I sold it, it was in 94% of all supermarkets in New Zealand. I've always sung in a choir in the Auckland Choral Society since 1974. And one Saturday morning, my husband was working and I had a choir rehearsal. So I went, my parents came over from the North Shore to look after the children. I think the youngest was about 2.5 at that stage. And we were subdividing this 1 acre block. And the digger, the little yellow digger that had come to put the to dig out the driveway, had got stuck in the mud. So the children were really interested about it, but the youngest one, Aslan, he had to go and have a sleep. So when my mother picked him up from his sleep, she said, "They brought a bigger digger, but the bigger digger stuck." And then she thought, oh, that sounds, like I could use this. So she went home and she wrote it out as a sort of poem and read it to the children over the phone a few times. They kept ringing up and saying, "Gran, read it again." So my mother was a children's literature specialist anyway, and my father's an artist. So they put their skills together and created the Little Yellow Digger book, which started here in Rosier Road. And subsequently they've done other ones about the zoo and a dinosaur bone and a stranded whale and one where the Little Yellow Digger goes to school. So yes, it's become a whole series now.